then they go on the YouTube channel in a day or two when I get it figured out. So I want to welcome everybody to the February 2024 meeting of Portland Photographers Forum. I would like to, we'll start with a few announcements. I would like to remind everyone that it's time now to renew your membership for 2024. And I'd like to thank everyone who has already renewed. I think we've had more than 50 people who have renewed already. And also welcome, we've gotten, I think, 5 or 10 new members, and we'd like to welcome all the new members to the meeting. Let's see. First, I just wanted to briefly mention that I'm working on arranging a workshop with Linda Robertson, who's here with us tonight, who is an encaustic wax artist and is going to have a workshop in her home studio for PPF members exclusively to learn about encaustic wax in photography and how to put encaustic wax on a photograph without ruining it. And there'll be more announcements about that coming up. But the date has been set for July the 20th, so we're still about 5 months out. But I invited Linda to come to a meeting tonight just to see what we're all about. They're only in her studio, only has room for a limit of 6 people. So if you think you want to do it, sign up early. The photography gallery exhibit at Oregon Society of Artists this year is in April, and submissions are now open if you go to their website. The theme this year is visual poetry, looking for the meaning. So just to encourage people to find their photos that might tell a story or make people think when they look at it. And the juror for the photography show this year is Fritz Liedtke, who is our speaker tonight. So thank you, Fritz, and we'll be introducing Fritz here in a little bit. Let's see, is Joe Whittington here? Joe, do you want to make an announcement about the trip to the Brothers Car Museum tomorrow?
Right, we have 17 people signed up, so it should be a pretty good group. And so meeting time is 11, and everyone should have the address and directions on how to get there. And just want to mention that if you have a favorite place you'd like to take photos or someplace you're interested in going, let me know and we can get you set up and assist you in coordinating that. So that would be really cool. I'm thinking for March, since I haven't had any volunteers, one of the organizations I supported is called Save the PT Boat. And actually the only functional operating PT boat, patrol torpedo boat, is actually at Swan Island. So it's very interesting. They have pretty much restored it and have all the weapon systems and nav systems and propulsion on board. So I'll be working with them and we'll get a date set up in March.
So Joe, if people want to still come out tomorrow who hadn't made up their minds or known about it, is it too late or can they still contact you?
They can still come out.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll have liability release forms, and evidently the link was a little wanky today, so so I'll have forms. But yeah, they need to contact me though to get the address.
Because it's kind of a secret location.
It is.
And I think next month for the photo challenge, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to ask the people who go on this car museum outing if they would submit 5 or 6 of their images for the photo challenge. And so next month's photo challenge will just be from the car show outing. So a little different, but we will probably get back to our usual format thereafter. Thanks, Joe. And Dawn, do you want to make an announcement about the Facebook group? Dawn has been working tirelessly for weeks now, trying to exit the old Facebook group and start the new Facebook group with, we can't possibly get rid of the old one because nobody knows who the administrator is. But Dawn has gotten a new Facebook group started, and I think it had 51 members when I looked at 6 o'clock. So, Dawn, do you want to talk about that? Oh, Dawn, unmute yourself.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, it's been quite a job. You know, we've had to get rid of the PPF group because, as you know, there was a lot of spam and hacking and inappropriate material, and it just wasn't a safe place for everyone. So all the admins are hackers, and I couldn't do anything about them. I tried. I've gone through all the rules and the guidelines of Facebook, which is really like going into the dark web. And it's just crazy. So so then I had to create a group, and you have to have a personal profile to create a group. So I couldn't just go in there and sign up as a business and not have my name connected to it. So that's why I'm on there. And the group is private, but I was unable to connect it to a nonprofit organization and put the website and email address on there. So I had to create a page, which you can do that on, and meld the two together. It's just a really weird thing. Anyway, we're set up. And so then I created a post to put on PPF telling all 833 members to please leave the group and join our group so we can let this thing fizzle. Unfortunately, the admin has made it impossible for me, or I suppose anyone who hasn't posted before, to actually make a post without his approval. So then that made it harder for me. So I thought, well, I'll just message all 833 people individually. So I got as far as about 30 people, but all of a sudden I was prevented. So I thought, all right, forget it. So then I started adding you all who are my friends and spreading the word that way. And then the other board members were doing the same thing. So you're right, it was 51 members, but about 15 minutes later, there were 4 more. So now we're at 55 people. So those have, and I went back on the PPF page, and there are still 833 people. So that means people need to go back in there and take leave the group physically, because we want it to fizzle. So if you could take time to do that, if you're a member of that group, and of course, if you're not a member of the Portland Photographers Forum with the apostrophe in it, please go in and join our group. When you search for it, all the words come up. So we've got a lot of groups there with all of our words in it. So you'll kind of have to search down, but it's a black and white logo icon. So it should be pretty easy. All the rest of them are color.
I'm going to post it in the chat.
Pardon?
I'm going to post it in the chat here in just a minute, so people have a link to it.
Okay, and
okay.
maybe when I start the screen share for the slideshow, I will briefly show the Facebook page so people can see it and see the logo and so forth.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Let's see. So for the future, so we always have emails admins. So when new boards come on, then we'll have like 3 or 4 people being admins. So there'll always be somebody we can contact, and our names are up there, and we all know who we are. Okay, so this will be a continuation. We won't run into this problem again. We're hoping this group will be active and a happening place where we can know about our events. We can see each other's photos. That being said, don't post a whole bunch all the time, but like 3 images of every couple times a week or whatever. We want to have all kinds of different things going on. And definitely don't post any memes or jokes or anything like that, because that's what invites spam in. Once you answer those things, you are a target. So don't post those. Just relevant photography stuff if you want to post. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how it goes. But I'm going to be working on it and watching it and taking off stuff if it happens. And I'm hoping that won't happen, because I'm hoping it will just happen us on there and new people and not scammers. So
And Dawn,
I-
thank you so much for working so hard to get this going. I know you spent days and weeks on trying
yes,
to get this ironed out. So we really
Yes,
appreciate
yes, Dawn. Thanks so much for doing
yeah.
that.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a learning process, but I'm really excited about it. I mean, once I got it going and got a path, everything, it's been really super fun. And, you know, I'm not real good about posting things. So it's actually teaching me to be more engaging, and I love it. So it's a good thing.
that.
Hey,
Good.
Bob, can I just say one thing real quick? It looked like the admin for us was with that old Gmail account, the photo forum at Gmail. So I don't know if that would be a way to get a hold of that or not. I think that password, that account is still active. It's called photo forum at Gmail.
We tried exploring that from many different directions and couldn't really get through.
Okay.
But thanks for that, Ray.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah.
Yeah.
There were apparently were several other people after that that took over the account. Apparently someone who likes to sell camera equipment.
Yes. I've seen him on other
Huh.
like Hasselblad classifieds, Leica classifieds. So he buys and sells, and I think it makes him look more legitimate to be admins of all these photography groups. And I think that's what he's doing. I'm just so tempted to fix his wagon, but I'm gonna wait it out and see what's going on. I'm really tempted because I've seen him before, you know, and he is selling legitimately, but this is wrong. It's just wrong.
Okay, well, Dawn, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Is Tim Dallas here? Tim, did you want to make an announcement about the Oregon Cultural Trust?
Yeah, I near the end of last year, I think one of our board meetings, Johanna King had suggested that we might explore becoming members of the Oregon Cultural Trust. And I guess that's a way for people can donate to the trust or to organizations that are listed in the trust. And we, as a result of Mark's work, got our non-profit status all straightened out and everything. So I got an application, and I had some documentation I had to attach to it, and I submitted our application. And just heard back, I think a couple of days ago, we heard back from Ale Schreiner, who is the manager of the trust, that we have been accepted and are eligible cultural nonprofit are among that list. So we're all set there. I don't know a lot of details about it, other than, I guess, if people want to donate money to us as a trust organization, that they can get a 100% tax credit up to certain limits for that. So in the email that we got, there was a toolkit with a bunch of information, and they also offered to do a 15-minute briefing on the trust to our board members. So I think maybe in the next month or two, we can schedule something like that for one of our board meetings to get all the details and stuff. And then they've got logos and things. We could put a little section maybe on our website about that or whatever. So anyway, I think we're all set. And I know, Joanna, do you have any more details about that, about being involved with the trust?
Well, I would love to be included in that 15-minute briefing if possible. My understanding at this point is that if you give money, like, for example, I give, say, $10 a month to OPB, and that's $120 a year. If I give an additional $120 a year, that second $120 is not just tax deductible as a donation, it's actually a tax credit off your tax bill. So that's the big advantage right there,
Okay.
that you can grow your donation to, you can grow your donation to become partially a tax credit. But I'd like to know a little more about it. So, so I hope you'll let me know when that does come.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I just, like I say, we are on the list now. I don't know a lot of details, but we'll learn all about it and then we can obviously let everybody know the details. So.
No,
Yeah.
that's
Thank-
great, Tim. I really
Thank
appreciate
you,
you figuring
Tim.
that out.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure. Thank
thanks,
you.
Tim.
As somebody that we donate to the Oregon Cultural Trust. And what you were saying is correct. You have to donate to profit and you have to match it. And then the match goes to the Cultural Trust. That's the part that becomes a credit.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, so I guess I got that right. Thanks,
Yeah.
Ross.
Okay.
If I could just plug a couple more things real quick, with regard to the membership. I think as of yesterday, we have 66 paid members for this year. There are 9 new people. And that still leaves about 45 people that were members last year that haven't paid this year. So just a little gentle nudge, if you can think about doing it. The sooner I get all the money, the less work I have to do, because then it's all done as treasurer. And then also with regard to Blue Sky Gallery, I've got people pretty much lined up through July now, but I've got a couple slots for the August, September period of time, and then some beyond that. So if people are interested in participating in that, just drop me an email.
Oh, Phil Bowser, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. How would I know if I paid for this year or not?
I can provide well, we have a list. How do you want to deal with that, Bob?
Maybe if you want to check the list later and send him an email and let him know.
Yeah, I can send an email, I guess, to everybody that's paid. And just, we don't have a constant contact list specifically of people that just have paid. I got just the whole list still, but yeah.
Send me
I'll
a
send
bill.
out, I can
Are
send.
you sure you don't have a list?
We have a list, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I used to send an email to everybody that paid.
Okay.
So
Tim, the members that pay and that you add to constant contact, those people have all paid. You do have a
Right.
list.
What
You
we
do have a
decided to
list of people that paid.
What we decided to do initially, just for the first wave of people, is we left everybody on there. And because we're getting, the majority of people are renewing, and then we'll just delete the people that haven't, instead of adding them all individually.
I see.
A little bit easier, but we're probably getting close to doing that. So I'll have a clean list and we can just send out an email blurb to everybody, and these are all the members. So everybody will know for sure.
Okay, maybe by the 1st of March, we could take everybody off who hasn't paid and then send an email to everyone who has.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a list. It just isn't tied to email yet.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
okay, why don't we go ahead then and we'll start the screen share. And I think maybe before I show the photo challenge, I would like to just show the Facebook page real quickly. Let's see, can everybody see that? That's what the Facebook page looks like, Portland Photographers Forum, PPF. And it has an apostrophe after the S.
And I just signed up for it. Easy.
So
I just signed up while we were talking.
Yeah, me too.
Excellent. Yeah, you just have to answer a couple of questions to show you're not a robot.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start.
Question, do you have to be a member, a paid up member to join it?
No.
It does ask you if you are a member.
Yeah, it asks you if you are a member, but you don't have to be to get in. Let's see. So I'm going to do share sound. Can somebody let me know if there's not any sound with this? I think this might be the first time we're actually going to hear the music. And the music was free, so you get what you pay for. But so this month's photo challenge was about winter or what? So either pictures of ice and snow or Hawaii and Death Valley. And thank you to everyone who submitted photos for this. I think we have over 100 altogether. The slide, we have 114, but that includes the nameplates. So the whole thing takes 16 minutes. Okay, well, thank you everyone who submitted photos. Always enjoy the variety of photos that we get and also the quality of the photos that we get. So thanks everyone who submitted photos, and we did get a few new people who got in under the wire. So thanks to everyone. So next up, we have our 15-minute member speaker, who is Don Jacobson. Don was kind enough to fill in on short notice. Don, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good, great. And do you want to go ahead and start your screen share?
Okay,
And
we'll see how this works. I couldn't get Lightroom to minimize, so let me know if this is going to work.
okay, good. We're in Lightroom, so
Okay, well that's
it's encouraging.
okay. So I traveled extensively to the Southwest of the United States, and for both hiking and the incredible geology, and but I also have been intrigued by the um, ancient Pueblos, and so I didn't start out making it a project, but this last October I spent a lot of time photographing some of the ruins, and this particular one is from the Canyon of the Ancients in Colorado, and it was an area that I didn't particularly know about, but a friend of mine recommended it, and it was really fabulous. And one of the places that I really wanted to go to was the Acoma Pueblo. The last time I had been in New Mexico, I missed going, and so I was really pleased that I was able to schedule a tour. And this is the longest continually occupied city in the United States. There's still people living here, and they had a really wonderful tour. Obviously, a very contemporary ladder, but the ladder is really an essential part. This is Bandelier, and it's a really interesting geology. The very soft sandstone is probably laid down by wind rather than marine deposits, so it tends to be loosely consolidated. So I'm not sure if the sandstone captured rocks that were harder than the sandstone and then just eroded out, or just a matter of the sandstone itself eroding out. But I thought it really interesting that the doorway to this pueblo really rhymed with the openings, the natural openings in the cliff. And this is an example of some of the painting that is still in existence. Most of the painting of the Pueblos has long since been decayed and eroded away, but they did decorate their houses, and you don't see very much of it because it was the first to decay. I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but this is a vertical wall, and these are handholds. This is how they would access up and down, besides using ladders. And here's a better view of some of the paintings that was protected from the elements. This is in the Bears Ears, what is now the Bears Ears National Monument. My wife and I were trying to find a very famous ruins, and for some reason we just drove right past the very obvious trail sign and ended up on a totally different trail. But we did discover this really wonderful ruin Nobody was there, and we had it all to ourselves for hours. And this is some of the petroglyphs that were on the wall of that particular ruin. Another angle. And this is the ruin that we were actually looking for. It's called the House on Fire for obvious reasons. It was actually lucky that we had to try and find it the second day, which was a Monday, and on Sunday it would have been very crowded. And as it turned out, there was only one other party that we saw all day in this ruin. And this is in Canyon de Chelly. It's called the Ledge Ruin. And this gives you a sense of the precipitous drop that you wonder how many people made a misstep to their misfortune. This is the Mummy Ruins, also in Canyon de Chelly, because somebody found what they thought was a mummy in the ruins. It's a pretty spectacular location. This is from the Canyon of the Ancients in Colorado. And another one from Canyon of the Ancients. And this one is called the Saddlehorn Ruins for obvious reasons of the shape of the geologic structure. This is Mesa Verde National Park, and it has some of the most complete ruins of just about any of the areas in the Southwest. And they have ladders. This one you can see is contemporary. This is a kiva. It's a ceremonial space for the Native Americans. Interestingly, when I took a tour on the Ute Reservation, the tour leader said that they don't have a religion, they just have a way of life. And virtually every Pueblo would have a kiva for almost every residence. And when the kivas were being used, these pillars would support cross beams and it would be covered and you would enter it from a ladder. And they recycled stones. This is a stone that had been used elsewhere and carved, and it was no longer in use, so they recycled it and used it on another structure. And this is another closer photograph of a kiva. And I just happened to be there at the right time when just a little beam of sunlight illuminated the top ledge of that stone. And this is a vent. And lots of petroglyphs. Hands are a very common theme. This is Spruce House. This was taken in 2011. You cannot get this close in Spruce House now because the structure is deteriorating to the point where it's the Park Service thinks it's unsafe for people to get this close, but they said that they are working on reinforcing it so they once again can open up Spruce House. It's a great ruins, and it was a lot of fun to get really close and personal with it. You can see the curve here, which would be the kiva. This is the Square Tower in Mesa Verde. They offer a few tours. I was online, ready to go when the tours opened, and within seconds, the website crashed, and by the time it came back up, all the reservations were gone. But there are really great viewpoints, so you can see it get a nice perspective of it. And this is Cliff Palace. Fortunately, this is one of the ruins where they lead tours and you can get up really close to it. This is a kiva with an ominous looking rock above it. Again, here you can see part of a kiva. This is another kiva. This is balcony house because these wooden posts supported balconies. Another photo of a balcony house. And again, balcony house. A little more detail. These openings are maybe 4 feet or so. You would have to stoop down pretty well to get in and out of them. But if you're heating heating the interior, you don't want the opening too big. So most of the openings are this size or smaller.
Don, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. And another photo from the Cliff Palace. And beautiful shot from the exterior overlook. Again, lots of kivas. Another one down here, another one over here. And this is gives you a sense of the overview. The population density here was very high for a very long time. Nobody knows for sure exactly why people moved on. Some people think it was a long drought. Others think it was a series of raids from the neighboring tribes, but nobody knows for sure. The descendants of these people are now the Hopi and Zuni. Nice, really big kiva. And this is from Valley of Fire State Park. And although this looks like a bird skewering a person, it's actually an ibis and a frog. This is in the Petrified Forest National Park. And Canyon de Chelly. This is Taos, another Pueblo that is continually occupied. This is the Ute Reservation. This one is called the Eagle's Nest, and this was our guide for the day. He stood there and sang just a stunningly beautiful song. It's really a wonderful experience. And this is the Lion's Den and the Ute Reservation. And again, Lion's Den. More petroglyphs. I believe this is in the Zuni Reservation, and I think we're getting close to the end. There were a lot of really very fine ancient petroglyphs, as well as a number of contemporary ones. And this is a very common motif, either concentric circles or spirals, probably a turtle. and Cocopelli, the character associated with fertility. And I think that that's the last one of my, yes.
Great.
And
We probably have time for one or two questions. Does anybody have a question they would like to ask Don?
Don, first of all, this is Giannis, and the photography is fabulous, and what a great tour you just gave us. I mean, incredible. And
well,
I'm
thank you.
wondering, it's like you've seen a lot. It's like, what's like, if you were to kind of sum up in a real short thing, what's your biggest takeaway from all the things that you saw there?
Well, one of the things that one of the tour guides mentioned is that these are still people's houses. There may not be people living in them currently, but the descendants still see them as their houses. And she asked that we have respect for the for the privilege of touring people's houses. And so that was something that I always appreciated being there, and I appreciated the architecture and the work that went into it and the kind of lifestyle that they developed. But I think that really helped me understand what I was looking at. It's just not a pile of bricks. This is somebody's house who and probably generations and generations of people lived in it. And that you do get a sense that there were people there, even though you can't see them. There's a feeling that this is a habited place.
Well, Don, thanks so much for sharing those with us, and thanks for pinch hitting on a short notice.
Oh, sure.
Really
Glad to
appreciate it.
do
Those are just beautifully done black and whites, and it's such a strikingly impressive area. So
I think
thank you.
Joanna had a question.
Oh,
Yeah, well, I've been around those ruins in my entire adult life, so I've seen most of what you've just shown. But you show them your photographs, especially partly it's the black and white, but especially it's the inclusion of the matrix, the geologic matrix that you put almost everything in. That's just gorgeous. Thank you.
You're welcome.
good. Well, I think we're running a little bit behind, so I'd like to move on to our featured speaker. Let me introduce Fritz. Fritz, are you here?
I'm here.
Okay. Our featured speaker tonight is Fritz Liedtke. Fritz does fine art portraiture, and he's based in the Portland area. Fritz has a Master of Fine or Bachelor of Fine Arts from Pacific Northwest College of Art. And besides doing portrait work, he teaches workshops through Santa Fe workshops and other venues, and including sometimes at Pro Photo, which is where I got to meet Fritz last fall during a dance photography workshop. And Fritz also has a workshop coming up this summer in Provence, if anyone would like to go to France and do some portraiture. So Fritz, thank you very much for coming to speak to Portland Photographers Forum tonight. And if you want to start your screen share, and
I would love to. All right, thank you.
I'll warn you when we have about 5 minutes left. And would you prefer to take questions during the presentation or save them till the end?
I'll kind of pause between the couple different things I'm going to share and ask for Q&A. And I love questions. That's something I really enjoy. So I'll open that up at a couple different times.
Okay, great. Great. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thanks, Bob. And Don, thanks for those beautiful pictures. That was fascinating. Loved it. Yeah, as Bob mentioned, I'm Fritz. I know a number of you folks. I haven't seen many of you except for Bob in a long time. So it's good to see your faces here virtually. Wish we could see each other in person soon, I hope. I've been photographing since I was a teenager. I went to school here in the Portland area and went to college in the Portland area. I live outside of Hillsborough in Shoals, and I shoot commercially. So I have a studio that shoots weddings and portraits, and I also shoot commercial work for advertising. And then I also have always kind of been careful to make time for my artwork as well. I think that's an important part of my life, so I've been careful to make time for it. So tonight, I want to share two things with you. Oftentimes, what I'm asked to talk about is how I create a body of work or a whole project, how that comes together. So I thought I'd share two projects with you, and I'll talk you through from beginning to end the process, and then I'll open up for questions and kind of go from there. I'm going to start with this one here. Some of you have probably seen this work. It's not new, but it's still work that I really love. See if I can go full screen here real quick. Or not.
Ooh, hope.
Why isn't my full screen working? There it is. Great. Okay, so this first project is called Astrovelum. Astrovelum is Latin for veil of stars. And this project started, I was in San Francisco for a photography assignment, and I was shooting down there. And one evening, my assistant invited some local friends along to dinner. And so we were at this pub together, and his friend's girlfriend was there with us. And she was just covered in freckles, and I thought she was so intriguing. So I asked her if I could take her portrait, and she had a hemmed and hawed, but then said yes. And the only light I had to work with was the light outside of the pub from the neon signs, because it was dark outside. So I faced her toward the signs. I took some close-up portraits of her with the camera I had with me. And, I went home and processed my images from that trip and thought, well, that's one of the most beautiful pictures I've taken all year. And that kind of stuck with me. I thought, what can I do with this? Kind of to explore this thing that intrigues me. So I just started looking for people I could photograph that had freckles. Didn't know what I was going to do. I was just intrigued by the concept and started taking pictures of people. And with friends, a couple people that worked in my chiropractor's office, people come out of the woodwork. Eventually, I started posting to Craigslist to try to find people. And I'd just shoot anybody that was willing, men, women, old or young, didn't matter. Eventually, I had a group of images that I kind of pared down, shared them with some friends here and there, other photographers, and got some feedback. And they said, you should just focus on the women, and you should just narrow down to the very best images, and then kind of create your body of work from there. And I started thinking about a lot of the conversations I had with people in this series. I guess I should show you some pictures while I'm talking. Quite a few people mentioned to me as we were talking about their freckles, and as I was photographing them, they would share how their freckles for them were something they wanted to hide oftentimes, or they grew up being embarrassed by them or wanting to cover them up with makeup or burn them off or whatever. One gal said, a gal I grew up with, she said, when I was a kid, my grandma told me to come inside from playing. I came inside and grandma said, go wash your face. And so she went and washed her face, and she came back, and grandma says, go scrub it again, it's still dirty. And the girl, April, said, it's not dirty, grandma, they're just my freckles. They're just my freckles. So a lot of people had these kinds of stories where they thought of their freckles, at least part of their life, as a flaw or something they needed to hide. So as I kind of continued on with this project, I was trying to make something beautiful out of these things that oftentimes are viewed societally as a flaw or a blemish. This is April, a girl I grew up with. So eventually I had this set of images, and I started to think about how I could present the work in a way that was appropriate for the images themselves. And I didn't want to just create a batch of inkjet prints. I wanted something that had more texture to it, that was appropriate for this kind of really textural skin. And I had studied when I was in art school, I had studied printmaking as well as photography. And around that time, somebody I knew was leading a workshop in photoreviewer. So I took this workshop for one weekend and pulled the very first print, pulled the print off the press, and I just thought that was the most beautiful print I'd ever seen. It's amazing. So I just decided to go that direction and create a set of hand printed photogravures of this work. So I eventually did so. It's a lot of work, create the plates and make the prints and make additions. But I did that, started showing the work around, got a bunch of shows, and started getting collected in museums. Around the same time that I was starting to show the work, I also thought, I really have always wanted to create a handmade book. I'd done a little bit of bookmaking in an art school, and but I'd never really done a photography handmade limited edition book. So I got together with a friend who's a bookmaker professionally, and we came up with this plan and budget, and just decided to go for it. So I created the prints, these were inkjet prints for the book. I had an author friend who wrote an essay. She had freckles, and so she wrote this beautiful little essay. Got the essay and my own little introduction printed with letterpress printing, so it's embossed into the paper, and then made this book. I'll get to the pictures of the book in a moment here. But I wanted a book as a something you can hold in your hands. You can look through it. You can see multiple images at once, as opposed to a single image on the wall. And then as I started to show this work and people started giving me feedback, I'll just share one story with you I really love. I was showing this work in China at a photo festival, and a Chinese woman was looking at the work, and she came over to me and found somebody who could translate for us. And she said, I used to think of myself as ugly because of my freckles, but now that I've seen your pictures, I think maybe I can be beautiful. That's the kind of stuff that you don't plan for when you're creating work, but it's really gratifying when you hear how it affects other people's lives. People often ask me how I made the images themselves. So the photographs, most of these are taken in my backyard in the middle of Portland, using a 50mm lens, natural light. Sometimes I have a reflector. Occasionally I'd go over to someone's home or somewhere else, but they're usually very simply created images. I really wanted to focus on kind of the immediacy of being right in someone's face. Occasionally, like this image, I was shooting with a lens baby lens. Yeah, and then when I processed the images, I kept thinking about photographs I'd seen in the past that were taken as tintypes of people with freckles, and how the freckles really stood out. It was really striking. So over time, I developed a way of digitally processing images to look like that orthochromatic tintype emulsion or film. And with orthochromatic emulsion, it's a blue sensitive emulsion, meaning that things that are blue in an image like a sky or blue eyes become very light, and things that are opposite of blue in the red and orange color spectrum become darker, which darkens up the freckles. So I processed them digitally to look that way, and then created the plates. And this is a print on paper. This is the final product, what they look like in the edition. Then let me show you the book here too, and I'll chat about that in another minute. You can see a little close-up of the book here. One thing I love about this book, because it's all custom made, I was talking with Rory, my bookmaker friend, and she had shown me some paper that I really liked, but it wasn't quite right. So we had this paper custom made for us. And so it's this beautiful handmade paper. It's dyed with walnut ink, or walnut ink. And then into the paper, they've thrown these mica flecks that create the reflections here. And because I've always thought about these freckles as like constellations on someone's face, that's where the Latin term veil of stars came from. I wanted to reflect that kind of constellation look in the actual paper. the book as well. So we made 30 copies, 25 edition of 25 books, and it's custom book boxes. They got collected into some museums and private collections. That was a really gratifying, fun experience. It was a lot of work to put this book together, but really worth it. Yeah. I mentioned too, the text inside the book is letterpress printed, so it's on this nice thick paper. It's embossed into the paper, so everything about the book has this lovely kind of handmade texture to it. So that's that series. I'll open it up to questions about that, anything about the series of process. Ask away.
Hey, Fritz.
Yeah.
As a befreckled person myself,
Yeah.
I grew up always proud of my freckles. They've
Fantastic.
The sun has faded all the ones from my face, but I have them elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason for that was my grandfather, who caught me admiring my freckles in the mirror one time and said, well, you know where you got those, don't you? And I said, well, Grandma says it's where the angels kissed me.
Right.
And he said, no, that's not right. He says, it looks to me like you were standing behind the screen door when the cow sneezed. I don't know if you ever heard that one, but if you're going to deal with freckles, you ought to have that one in your lexicon somewhere.
That's the best description I've heard. That's fantastic. Very good.
I have a question for you, Fritz. This is
Yeah.
Pat.
Hi, Pat.
First, these are just gorgeous. They're just haunting almost. I can't express. I just the way you captured the eyes particularly, but then the freckles, of course, standing out. So a couple things. How did you find all these beautiful women? I see a little boy maybe in there too. And how did you capture their expressions? Do you feel like you coach them through the session, or you snapped away a lot until you saw what you wanted? Because they all have the same, well, not the same, but they all have a very almost haunting expression on their faces, and how you could capture that with so many different models is amazing to me. I've done portraiture myself, and I know how hard that is.
Yeah, it's a good question, Pat. I do, in this series, I'm always giving a little bit of direction, but in this series, I really wanted people just to relax, be themselves, and not smile. A lot of people want to smile in front of the camera, so what coaching I do is really helping people just relax and be calm in front of the camera. So that's the majority of the kind of direction I gave people. I did originally shoot, I was shooting both men and women, but I found it really difficult to, I didn't get a lot of men responding to my requests for models. So in the end, I just didn't have enough guys to kind of round the whole thing out. So that's why I got some advice from other people just to focus on the women. Yeah, so that's why.
That's interesting, that last comment you made, because Mike was saying how he grew up being proud of his freckles. So I wonder, and in our culture, women with freckles, I imagine it's a little harder for women, the whole self-image to feel, beautiful with their freckles, and not as, readily accepting of them as a man might be. So maybe a lot of guys thought, freckles, big deal. But women, women might think, oh, well, somebody wants to capture this, something that I felt was like a, almost a flaw growing up. So it's just, and you capture them all. I mean, they're just beautiful. I'm just gushing, sorry.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it was tougher. In general, I find with photography projects, it's harder to, at least the work I do, it's been harder to find guys to model for me. Like I did an entire project for almost a decade on eating disorders, turned into a book and a traveling show. And statistically, for every 10, like 1 in 10, every 10 women with an eating disorder, there'd be at least one guy.
Right.
But I had a really hard time getting that ratio to show up. So I had to toward the end of the project, I was just like trying to find guys to shoot just so I could get at least a 1-to-10 ratio in the final series. And, you know, that particular subject matter, of course, is really sensitive. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, but
Right.
yeah, it can be challenging.
And I have one final question, technical
Okay.
question. You said you shot these with your with the Lens Baby. Which Lens Baby did you use?
I think one of these was an Edge 50 and another was just an earlier, this one here was an earlier Lens Baby. I don't remember exactly which one it was.
And that's responsible for the lovely depth of field.
And also, yeah, and also kind of the blur around the. Let's see, there's another one that I shot with the Edge 50.
What is the one you just said, the more recent one?
This is called the Edge 50. It has a clean line of focus, whereas a lot of the others have a lot more blur. They have I'm blanking on the term, but this one you can tilt and shift more like a large format camera, as opposed to some of the others. Early on, I'm friends with Craig Strong, who developed the Lens Baby, so this probably was even just like an experimental one he lent me for all I know at the time.
Oh yeah.
Any other quick
Anyway,
questions about
thank
this
you
series? Yeah, thank you, Pat.
So Fritz, how long did it take from that very first photograph and you got the light bulb and then you went on to finishing the book? How long was that process?
Ooh, that's a good question, Jonas. I couldn't give you an exact number, but I would guess it was probably 5 years as a guess, partly because I would shoot, like any project I'm working on, I'm usually shooting when I have slow seasons at work in my commercial work. So I'll have time to put up a post and I'll arrange to shoot some people, maybe 4 or 5 over a few weeks. And then I won't have time for a while. And then, so projects often go like that for me. So it can take a while just to shoot for it. Of course, then you're kind of revising things, then you're editing things, and then you're printing things. So yeah, it's probably several years between the first idea and when I had the book done.
So
I have a quick question. And I appreciate what you said in the beginning. You took something that was considered an imperfection and you made it beautiful, and you really did. And I thought you mentioned you advertised on Craigslist. Not
yes.
advertised. You
Yeah.
posted on Craigslist to get models.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Great.
I meant to talk about that. I'll share some things I've done over the years to find people. That's a great question, Kathleen.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I years ago, and I'll talk about this in my next project, but I have some seasonal depression, and you know, I love to photograph, but in the middle of winter, I love to photograph, especially outdoors, natural light, all that stuff. I do a lot of, you know, artificial lighting too, but in the winter, of course, in Oregon, it can be really hard to get any kind of light for months at a time to shoot with. So one winter, I was kind of depressed and couldn't find anything creative to do, and thought, oh, maybe someone would be crazy enough to just let me photograph them in the rain, right? Just as something to do. So I put a post up on Craigslist. This is the first time I ever did this. I said, hey, I'm a photographer, and I just wondered if some people would be willing to let me photograph them in the rain. And I got several people that responded to that. We got together, and I think I shot with my 4x5 or something. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. So probably the same year, later that year, I was working on another project I'm not sharing with you today, but this project about eating disorders called Skeleton in the Closet. But wow, I've had this idea for this eating disorder project for a year, but I didn't know how to find anybody. So maybe I'll just post it on Craigslist like I did with this rain project. And it started to work. So I'd put a post up, 2, 3, 4 people would contact me and say, hey, I'd be willing to talk with you about this, and kind of go from there. So the Craigslist became a way for me to find people. In the post, I'd talk about the project, I'd give my credentials so that people know I wasn't a creep. I'd give links to my websites, and then people would contact me from there. Over time, of course, Facebook came around, so Facebook can be a good way. But also, as I started on a project, and then would be talking to people about it, other people will come out of the woodwork too. So, like this guy right here on the left with the hat. I was at Alberta Park in Portland, near where I lived at the time, I was babysitting my nephew and he was playing on the playground. And this other gal was there and she had a kid about the same age. So as parents do at playgrounds, we just started talking. And at the end of the conversation, I said, hey, I'm working on this project about freckles. Do you mind if I take your portrait sometime? She said, sure. So we exchanged contact information, and a couple weeks later, we got together and took her portrait. A couple other people in here are so this gal here and this gal over here are both massage therapists, or were at the time at my chiropractor's office. Yeah, so people just, oh, this gal here also. Oh yeah, that's the same gal. Massage therapist at my chiropractor's office. So as you're working on a project, both because you're talking about it with other people and because you're thinking about it and you're looking for people, you'll just find people in your world that kind of fit the criteria. One gal, let me see if I can find her here. This gal here in the middle. I was at a concert in the park in Portland with my wife, and she's like middle school age. She was there with her family. I thought, wow, that girl's got great freckles. So I went over and talked to her parents and introduced myself and chatted about this project. And they said, yeah, sure, so you can come take her picture. So I got together at their house, the next week and took her portrait. So those are ways I find people. I post about it, I talk about it, and I'm just kind of always looking for people. And this is something I talk a lot about in my workshops, because when I teach a portrait workshop, one of the biggest fears I find that people have had, having taught for 20 years, the biggest hindrance to people being great portrait photographers is their fear of asking people if they can take their picture. So I have several exercises I go over in my classes, just helping people with that one thing about overcoming their fear of talking to people. Because what you find is people are usually pretty honored that you'd be willing to pay any attention to them whatsoever, and be willing to take their portrait. And I'd say 95% of the time they'll say yes if you ask nicely. So those are my tips on how to find people to photograph.
So I have a couple.
Yeah, Joanna.
I have a couple of questions, kind of technical questions around that same issue. What's your give and take? I mean, do you give these people portraits of themselves in return, or do you get signed releases from them to use their portraits in your published material, like the book?
Yes, both. So yes, I
have
a model release that everybody signs, and my model release says, I'm giving you this in exchange for that. So I'm giving you images in exchange for the right to use your picture. So I give people prints if they want to print. Not everybody wants a print, and I'll give people digital files as well. Sometimes if I'm shooting a portrait for somebody for my project, maybe like this project, but I know they might want like a headshot for their business or some pretty picture for Instagram or whatever, I'll just shoot some other stuff at the same time and give them some other pictures as well, just as a nice little gift.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Fritz, another two questions that are simultaneous. One is, how do you stay focused, or how many projects are you working on at the same time, plus like the commercial and portrait work that you're doing? And then how do you stay focused? Oh shoot, I've got 2 weeks of slow time. Oh shoot, I got to get back into this. How do you steer your convertible back into doing the freckle project?
Yeah, good question. I think part of what makes it easy to do is I'm usually pretty excited about these kinds of projects. So I'm kind of chomping at the bit to find time to work on them because I just enjoy it. So there's that. Yeah, that's the main one. Like, just I try to follow my excitement in my artwork, follow my intuition. Now, kind of later in life, I am also become kind of a big fan of setting goals and at the beginning of the year and finding ways to follow through on them throughout the year. So that kind of self-discipline is key as well. I had one other thing I was going to say. I guess you had another question. You had asked about how many things I'm working on at any given time. it's not uncommon for me to have kind of two projects I'm working on at any given time. Like right now, I'm working on a project. I got a grant for a project. I'm collaborating with somebody else about chronic illness because she and I both have had some serious health problems over the years with scoliosis and other things. So it's one project, and then another project I'm working on right now is with dancers. I'm trying to create some installation work, which is not something I've ever done. So yeah, there's this, then I'm balancing that with my other work and taxes and family and all that stuff too. So yeah, so I set some goals. I give myself benchmarks, like I have to hit this quarter, I need to get this done in order to get that done by the end of the year, and so forth and so on. So that helps me kind of stay focused too. Also, I'll say, like, I got a grant for this chronic illness project, so that puts some fire under you, because you got to get something done by the end of the year to show people what you are doing with their money. Yeah, deadlines are also great. So whether it's a self-imposed deadline, like, oh, this is what I'm going to get done by the end of the year, or I've got a show coming up on October 1st, so I got to get this done by that show. All kinds of ways to give yourself deadlines. Accountability, if you have an accountability partner or you're in a group like this where other people can keep you accountable on a project, those are great ways to keep motivated. Did that answer your questions, Giannis? Did I go off track there?
I have a question.
Okay.
Did you ever ask any of your models if they had any other family members with freckles? In other words, is this a familial kind of thing that's passed down genetically?
That's a great question. I never asked anybody that, but I did occasionally. I would shoot, like this gal on the top here. Her mom came with her, of course. Her mom had all these amazing freckles too, so I photographed her too. Her image didn't make it in the series, but it wasn't. I can think of a couple times where that was the case, where a family member was with them that was also freckled. Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else, or should I move on? All right, let's move on. The reason I shared this one first, besides the fact that I like this work, is that when I created these photogravures, I printed these as, it's called a sheen clay. So this print is on, of course, it's on a piece of paper. This is reused BFK. It's a nice thick printmaking paper. And of course, you have the plate. You can see the size and shape of the plate that I ink up and print. But what you can't really see here, you could see if you saw it in person, perhaps, is there's another piece of paper here that's the exact same size and shape as my plate. And it's this yellow and a golden color. It's a Japanese rice-based paper. And when I was in school studying printmaking, I learned this process. It's called sheen clay, so it's Chinese collage. And the process is that you cut these pieces of paper the exact same size and shape as your plate. Your plate, when you're running it all together through the press bed to print the print, this is hard to do without showing in person, but you have the Rees BFK, the white paper on the plate on the press bed, and then you have your, you have the plate on the press bed, and then you put this piece of Japanese paper over top of the plate. You sprinkle some wheat starch on the back of that, and then the white piece of paper, the Reeves, has been soaked in water, so it's wet, and that goes over top. So that little sandwich runs through the press. The press, smashes this thing down with 40,000 pounds of pressure, and the wheat starch and water mix together and create a paste, so that that Japanese paper gets glued and embedded into the Reeves paper, and then the ink, of course, is pressed into that Japanese paper. So this little sandwich creates a really nice, lovely glow, because this rice paper just reflects light in a lovely, subtle way. I mention that because as I was making this work, I started to think about, oh, this rice paper is fairly transparent. What could I do in there to create another layer, to create some other effects? So as I was finishing up printing these editions, I started to experiment with what else I could do. And I have a whole box of experiments that went nowhere, but I was trying things. I was drawing on the back of the paper, and I was putting other objects in there, and so many different things you can do, just playing around with transparency and layering. That led to, I guess I'll skip over here to another. That led to, let me show you a different thing here real quick. Sorry, Zoom is in the way here. Briefly, I'll just show you this here, this series here of wallflowers. That led to a decade of kind of playing around with this process of essentially to make up for myself in many ways, of layering photographs and other materials using an encaustic medium. It's wax-based, wax and resin-based medium, to create these layered pieces. I never created exactly a series, but I did a lot of work playing with a lot of different things behind the photographic print, in front of it, both, and using paint and metal leaf and all kinds of different materials. A lot of experimentation over about a decade. I mentioned that because that's kind of the next step between the photo reviewers and what I'm going to show you now, which is this next work here called unfurling. And I'm going to give this, let this video play as an introduction to this work, because it shows a little bit of the process. Then I'll come back and talk more about the process. If I play this and you can't hear the volume, somebody please speak up and say so, and I'll do something different.
I don't hear any music yet.
Yeah, we're
sound.
not hearing anything, Fritz.
All right. This is the thing that sometimes it works on Zoom and sometimes it does not. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play it and I'll just read it to you myself. So give me a second here. I'll do my own voiceover. Find myself. All right, so I'll just play this and I'll talk over it. Ferns and lichen, moss, wood, and leaves. Fragile materials, vulnerable to the seasons and the elements, but also flexible and strong, resilient. During long walks in the woods, I observed the hanging mosses, the clinging lichens, and sprouting ferns as forms I wanted to incorporate into my work. They whispered to me of hair fluttering on the wind, veins splayed across branches, spines sprouting from the ground, body parts strewn about the forest. Over time, this palette expanded to include wasp nest paper, leaves, bark, metal leaf, paint, all held together by wax and resin on wood panels. This work springs from my personal experience with seasonal depression, which is closely tied to the landscape and weather patterns of the Pacific Northwest. It has also informed my experience with physical disability and 3 decades of dealing with the vicissitudes of my own body. While crafting this work, I was meditating on this and the stories hidden away inside all of us, that inner wilderness in which we cache our questions and wounds, the parts of us that are fragile and vulnerable, ways we grapple with the dark, and the ways we hope for light, for sight, to be seen. I was also contemplating renewal and redemption, how we rise from the damp darkness, emerging like a fern unfurling from the forest floor, transforming decay into new life, creating something beautiful out of this beautiful mess. Each of these unique 3-dimensional multimedia pieces is crafted by hand. Materials include wax, resin, paint, paper, botanical elements, metal leaf, and photography on a wood panel. I would collect these materials and press them, create these photographs and print them, and then find compositions that work to create the image and the mood that I wanted for each one. In the end, these are 3-dimensional images that you can see something different in every time you look at them. So that's a little about the series. There's some, of course, some very fast little scenes there about how I made the work, and I'll come back to that in a minute, but I'll show you some more close-up images of the series themselves. Well, these images aren't about the particular people. The people I'm using just as a kind of a way of kind of expressing something from my own life, my own experience, and in combination with these other materials, just trying to. I guess I just talked about that in the description, but just trying to create a mood that is expressive for these things. I worked on this project for about 2 years to create these. There are about 25 pieces in the final body of work. I started it during the pandemic when I spent a lot of time hiking and collecting materials. And just spent hours and hours in my art studio creating each one piece by piece. People ask me about this. This is actually wasp nest paper from a big wasp nest I collected off our house. Found it a pretty fascinating material to work with. So this is work I just finished a couple months ago, or not 2 months ago, last fall. So it's a very recent work. It was published in Lynn's work recently. And I'm just about to head to Houston to PhotoFest to start showing it to, introducing it to galleries and whatnot. Yeah. So it's new work. And I'm open to questions.
So I guess I have a couple questions. So I apologize if I didn't listen closely enough to the voiceover when you were showing your slideshow, but how did you land upon the idea of just juxtaposing the models with the foliage, the elements from nature? And did you have all these portraits all ready to go and you just added in the foliage? And was this sort of an inspiration that was born, full blown, or is this something that evolved over time and you let the work kind of guide you into what we see now? a lot of questions, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I'd say it's kind of the latter. I'll see if I can find an image in here that shows my process. There's a shot in here somewhere of me in the studio. Yeah, you can see. So this is a little corner of my studio. So I did have a kind of I have a catalog of images I shot over the years and so I'd kind of go through and find work that seemed appropriate for this body of work, and then I started shooting new work as I started making the project, doing the project. But what I would do is I'll make a print or two, bring it into the studio. I have this kind of catalog of images on the walls, and then of course I have all these materials that I've collected and flattened, and so I'd just sit down on my stool and look at the wall until an image spoke to me, and then say, okay, I'll pull it down, and then I set it in front of me and I say, well, what does this need? I just try to listen to it, and then I start pulling out materials that seemed appropriate for it. And then there's this whole, hours or days long process of finding out what materials this image needs, how to arrange them, what colors, what kind of paint, what kind of background. And then there's this long composition process. And then I'd, let's see, then I'd assemble it. So for this work, I'm running these images on a thin Japanese paper, and then I'll wax it. So it's a hot and caustic medium. And then there's this wooden panel I've waxed also, so it has wax on it. And then once I've created the composition, I'll tack it down, and then take an iron and then heat my wax print and all the other layers all at the same time. You heat them up together, and that fuses everything and creates a solid panel. And,
with texture?
Oh yeah, I mean the stuff is
texture, right?
embedded in the print. Yeah, so yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's materials on top, like this one, painted lichen on top of the print as well. That's embedded, coated in wax, so forth.
So I've done some botanical scans, use my scanner to create bouquets and that sort of thing. And it takes a long time for me to come up with the composition, but that's just the composition alone. And then I can just get a digital file out of this. But this must take hours and hours to go through that process of figuring out which natural materials would, work as the portraits, dictates in your feelings and so forth. And then you must sort of arrange things before obviously it takes a long time to figure out a composition before you commit to the wax, because then it's a done deal, right?
It is mostly done, though. It can be undone, and there are certainly times when I pulled things apart and redid things. Of course, and then I'm thinking too about how to, like, in the composition process, and I'm also painting materials, and you have to let it dry, so it's usually like a several days process to complete a single piece. And oftentimes I'm working on a couple, 2 or 3 at a time.
So creative. Wonderful.
I really appreciate how you take a season that's difficult to get through and physical challenges and make it come out like this. You as instead of a weakness, it becomes a strength through these works. It reminds me of the Freckle project, where you took what was considered an imperfection and showed its beauty. So,
I've long thought that if you can take something really difficult in your life and make something beautiful out of it, I find that I love the word redemptive. It's very redemptive. Take something hard and make something beautiful. It feels like you transformed those difficult things into something lovely and worth it.
yeah, you really did. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to go, so I just wanted to say these images were absolutely stunning, and thank you so much for coming and making the presentation to us. It was really thrilling. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate that a lot.
Well, and I just want to jump in for a second too and say I also work in encaustic and photography. Mostly painting now, but I was originally a photographer. And yeah, these are just gorgeous. These are some of the processes that I work with as well. But I just love, like what Kathleen said, in terms of feeling sad during certain seasons and all of that. I think we all might get a little bit of that, but I have it too. And for me, it is walking in nature that helps with that. And so these really resonate with me as well in terms of bringing that spirit of the land back into your work. And I just think it's beautifully successful.
That's a great way to put it. Thank you, Linda. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Beautiful work.
Thanks for sharing with us, Fritz. I've been familiar with your freckle project for a long time, but I've never heard the backstory. So that was really interesting.
Yeah. I always like hearing other people. I always like hearing the backstory about projects too. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that. Any other questions? If not, I'll give another minute for questions, but then I'll just chat about some workshops I have coming up if there are no more questions. All right, let me switch screens here then. First, thanks for listening and looking at my work. I just want to share a couple things I'm excited about coming up. I have 3 workshops coming up. Bob mentioned I have a workshop coming up in Provence in the south of France in September. I'm so excited about this. It's very small, so there's only spots for 7 people. I think we have 4 slots still available. We're going to be in the south of France for 7 days together, and I'm just going to teach you everything I know about portraiture, working with models and dancers in just these amazing locations throughout Provence. Raina, who's hosting the workshop, lives there, and she's been photographing there for a number of years, and I'm really excited. I was there in Provence for a couple of weeks in 2008, and that's the last time I was there. And it has been the place I've wanted to go the most in the world ever since. So I'm really thrilled to be able to lead a workshop there. So to combine teaching and photography and travel, it just kind of hits all the buttons for me. So I'm really excited about that. So I'd love to have anybody that wants to come along. You can find information about this on my website up here under the Provence Photography Workshop.
Is that Roussillon?
Is there an image of Roussillon? This is Gourd. I don't remember what village this is. I have pictures of Roussillon, but I don't think I put them in here. But yes, we'll be right near Roussillon. Love that area. Have you been there? Well, if you haven't been there, or if you have, consider joining me. That's going to be great. I also have a workshop coming up virtually on Santa Fe workshops in April and May. I just did this workshop in the fall, and it's very popular. And what we do in this class, if you're a painter or a draftsman, at least historically, people would spend a lot of time looking at the work of master painters and printmakers and draftsmen, and then just copying their work in their sketchbooks and on their canvases. But in photography, I've rarely seen anybody do this. So I came up with this class in which we look at the work of master photographers, 3 different photographers' portfolios each day, talk about how they made their work. I teach people how to dissect how images are made, looking at them closely, and then you get assignments every week to replicate work of a master photographer. And people just learn a ton from having to do that. So that's the class that's coming up in April. You can sign up for that with Santa Fe Workshops. And then I have one that we're scheduling right now. I don't have it online anywhere because it's not finalized, but I'll be leading the dance photography workshop that Bob talked about here in Portland in October, I believe, where we collaborate with Pro Photo Supply and Body Vox Dance Center we're going to have an 8-hour day where I'll teach and demonstrate, and then you have time to shoot with models and lights and stuff with dancers there on site with my help. And then we'll have a week later, we'll have an online review to kind of go over our work. So 3 classes you can take. I'm excited about. I think Bob also mentioned I'll be judging the Oregon Society of Artists competition in couple months, so I encourage you to submit for that. And I think that's all I've got. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, Fritz, thank you so much for speaking to us. Are there more questions or comments that people have?
I just think that the online, obviously Provence, but that online class is such a great idea. I'm surprised I have not heard that from anyone yet. I think that's really fascinating.
Nice. There's a great little book. I actually originally titled this class Steal Like an Artist. Have you guys ever read that book? Great book. If you haven't, it's just an easy little read. So that's kind of the theme of the classes. Let's just steal like artists and learn from other artists.
Fritz, do you ever teach live in Santa Fe?
I am waiting for them to schedule me. Were going to schedule me this summer, but I'm going to actually be in Provence in June preparing for this fall class at the dates they wanted to have me in Santa Fe. So I don't have a live class at Santa Fe this year.
Okay, hopefully next year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I took a class there 20 years ago and I just loved it.
Oh, it's great. Great organization, great people.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Other questions or comments?
Just a big thank you. It's
Yep.
a wonderful presentation. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure.
Could you say again what the Vermont workshop's going to be and where and when?
You said Vermont. I don't have a Vermont
Yeah.
class, but it's a Santa Fe. Do you mean Santa Fe workshops?
Provence.
Oh, Provence. Excuse me. Yes.
No, I
Vermont
think
is
that's
a little different.
Yeah.
Here are the dates. This is in September. And we'll be staying in La Fontaine, which is just outside of Villeron, which is a little village with one of the most famous night markets or farmers markets in France. We're going to be, yeah.
Oh, Fritz, the link for the Provence workshop, is that on your website?
It is. If you just go to my website at fritzliedtke.com, you'll see it there. And maybe somebody can post some, maybe I can give Bob some links that can post on your new Facebook group or something.
That's a great idea. Any other questions? Oh,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Fritz.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, we're gonna take portraits. We're gonna have great food. We're gonna go to some really cool places you can't get in unless you have private access. We're gonna take one morning and go to an antique market, and everybody's gonna look for something at the antique market to incorporate into a photograph that they take that week, and a bunch of other fun stuff. So it'll be great.
Fritz, how do you balance, you have a family, like how many kids, and how do you balance like your work with family life?
That's a great question, Giannis. I work hard at that. So yeah, I have 2 young kids, started a little late. Yeah, I'll mention this quickly. Years ago, when I was in art school, so I graduated in 2001. I went back to school after I was disabled for a bunch of time. I was in art school and I remember thinking, I do not want to have a career in photography in which I'm shooting shoes all the time. And also, I don't want to have a career in photography that doesn't leave me any time or energy for my personal work, because the personal work is really important to me. So I've always been really careful to do the work I get paid for, but leave time and energy for the other things that are important in my life too. So it's family, artwork, travel, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of just a matter of having good boundaries and being disciplined about making the time in your life for the things that are most important. That's really what I'm all about. Does that answer your question, Giannis?
Well, I think that's like a constant struggle. Like I was
Absolutely.
commercial photographer. I started shooting for National Geographic, and then I had kids, and I thought, no.
Yes.
This is not for me. And if you look at like the National Geographic guys, most of them are divorced, don't have kids.
Yep.
Or they're separated from the kids. I mean, it's just like you're making choices.
You are. And I was actually really intentional about that very thing. I love to travel, but I didn't want to have a job where I had to travel a lot because I'd be away from my family. So yeah, that's a sacrifice too, because there are jobs I would have loved to have. Instead, I took other kind of commercial work that doesn't have a lot of travel, but gives me time and space to be with my family and whatnot. But you're right, it's a constant balancing act. I mean, we all have to balance stuff day in and day out.
Well, Fritz, thanks so much for coming to speak to us tonight, and thank you also for being our juror for the upcoming photography exhibit in April.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking, Bob.
And I guess we will say goodnight, and thank you for everyone for tuning in tonight. And so the replay will be posted on the YouTube channel here in a tomorrow or the day after.